All right, HBCU fans, it's County Mosley here with Charles, the Professor Bishop. What's going on, Charles?
Hey, Cal, how you doing, brother?
Oh man, look, it's good to have you. Connect with you, man. Every time we try to take over Doc's place, he kind of kicks me out afterward. But look, a lot of people been asking, hey, can we talk about the top ten rankings? What you guys think about who's who and what's what? And I want to get your professional thoughts on some of these rankings out there. Every week Donnell Ware has his box to row rankings, and then you have HBCU Plus with Stat Perform. They have their rankings, their team of the week, and things to that nature. And we have one at the HBCU Media, right? And
Mhm.
we also have another one that I do with HBCU Legends. And so I just wanted to kind of consolidate some thoughts here, man.
Yeah.
Instead of us being all over the place, and we want to know what you guys are thinking as well. So put your chats and your comments down there. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in HBCU's football going into week 5. But before we do that, let's break some news and talk a little bit about what's happening with the hurricane that is headed toward Tallahassee right now, Charles.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a huge story, especially as we look a little further in the week. But today, Florida A&M, they effectively postponed the game with Alabama A&M. They moved it to November 29th, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Which, interestingly enough, that's going to be a very interesting time frame when you take a look at the SWAC East race, around that time of the year. That should be, if I'm not mistaken, a few days after the Florida Classic.
Right.
So short week turnaround, and you play another division foe, and it could be a lot riding on the line with regards to that game.
Yeah. Also, if there's any implications, let's say they fail to win the SWAC East, right? How will that impact them going to the FCS playoff system?
Yeah, I think it depends on where Alabama A&M is around that time of the year. If their record is not a very good record, it could negatively impact Florida A&M, or they might have to win by a certain amount, or whatever the case might be, to have a more of a better argument, at least for the FCS playoffs. But there'll be a lot riding on that game, and then I just don't want to see Donovan Eaglin at the end of the season. he's a load to bring down. So that's going to be a very interesting game, and just the timing of it coming after a huge rivalry game. And you don't know how emotionally spent that team could be. Toward the end of the year, and have a tough foe coming in. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's happening outside of those games and what's going to happen with Tallahassee. They just introduced a new VP of athletics and director, Angela Suggs, and she was very emotional when she took the podium, and she's a FAMU grad, so coming back home and being able to take that post after the era with Tiffany Dawn Sykes. How do you see her possible era and what she could be able to do to help out with the program?
Oh, well, we always talk about sort of having that buy-in from the administration standpoint, from the president to the AD to the coaches. And if any link is broken in that chain, it becomes sort of a difficult situation. So it'll be very interesting to see who FAMU is going to move forward with regards to president, and make sure that chain, if you will, from the top to the coaching level is a strong chain. But from talking to a lot of FAMU people, a lot of boosters, they're happy. One of their own is coming back into the fold. Somebody who has grown up as much a rattler as anybody. I mean, literally from grade school all the way through to take on the helm. And she has, that corporate experience, if you will,
Yeah.
And she's bringing that back to FAMU. So, but like I said, you have to have that chain unbroken from the top down to make sure that you have a very good, solid footing with regards to your athletic program.
Yeah, I think one thing was very clear that she may be able to help navigate some of the ins and outs of Florida politics as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And she has already been able to help out with that sports foundation. She has some connections within the governor's administration, right?
Mhm.
And there's been a lot of sayings of what could possibly happen to Florida A&M in the future, but having somebody inside like that may be what FAMU needs at this time. We shall see, right?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be a very interesting hire. And what do they say? It's not who you know, but who knows you. That could make a huge difference with regards to Florida A&M athletics.
Yeah, definitely. Look, man, we had some exciting games this past weekend, especially here in the Houston area. If you guys don't know, Charles is a professor over at Texas Southern, and Texas Southern went to Lamar. Looks like the Tigers were beating up on those guys 3 3/4 of a game, and it came down to the end where Lamar was able to come back and pull it out. How the Tigers rebounding from that? Because I know they have Jackson State coming up.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge game coming up with regards to Texas Southern. But the thing that sort of impresses me in regards to Texas Southern is, they can run the football. And one of the things that stands out is, time of possession. If they could do the little things like they did in the Prairie View game,
Right.
to not shoot themselves in the foot, they become a very formidable foe. And you kind of see this team sort of molding themselves sort of in the image of Chris Dishman, close to the vest. They don't, they're learning the process of the discipline part, that came to rear its ugly head, in Lamar game. But, if this team can do, and we've said this for years with regard to Texas Southern, it's the little things that they have to take care of, not jumping illegal procedures, when it's 3rd and 1 and push them back to 3rd and 6, an untimely personal foul, a fumble here, an interception there. Those have been sort of the things that they have to clean up, and especially when you play, quote unquote, one of the blue blood programs within the SWAC. You have to be on all P's and Q's, and there'll be a big crowd here in Houston this upcoming weekend. Jackson State has a tremendous alumni fan base in Dallas and Houston. They'll be out in full throat, and the Texas Southern has to match that energy.
Yeah, not only match the energy, I think also being a home opener, right, for those guys, you have to be able to understand the dynamics that's going to go into this game. Being able to play a caliber team that TC Taylor and Jackson State is going to walk into, Shell Energy, they're coming to be able to win this game because it's an important game for them as well.
Yeah.
But I think right now, I think those 2 losses that Texas Southern had against Rice as well as Lamar could be great learning tools for those guys going forward, and being able to get those type of bad losses out of your blood, understanding how to be able to win, because for a long time, Texas Southern hasn't been able to win close games, even through the McKinney era. The past 2 seasons, they've had too many close games that they let slip through their fingers. Hopefully this could be able to help them out. Now, if you go up 290, man, Prairie View, that was a heartbreak that they lost, but for Southern Knights, it was a thriller. Talk about that one, man.
Yeah, big bounce back win for Southern. And, they call, Prairie View Stadium Mumford West. It tells you about the
6-0, 6 straight wins, right?
The dominance that they've had coming out to Prairie View. But that's a huge testament to the Southern program. Big bounce back win because they were deflated. That fan base was deflated after the Jackson State game, the way Jackson State sort of manhandled them in that game. For them to come back and bounce back and fight back and get that win at Prairie View, that was a huge win for that program. And I just say, this is one of those seasons, Kyle, where you're going to be snapping your neck week to week, like, and looking at your phone like, I can't believe it. You know, right. That is that much parity, I think, from the top to the bottom in the SWAC. I would not be shocked. You know, Prairie View, bad loss against Southern. They go up to the State Fair Classic this weekend and beat Grambling. You know, we saw that with Jackson State. Big win over Southern. They turn the ball over 5 times at Grambling, 19,000 people down there. Grambling gets the win. So it's going to be that sort of season in the SWAC. And that's why I say, when you start taking a look down the line, a game being postponed to November 29th for FAMU and Alabama A&M, I can almost guarantee you something's going to be riding on that game, because this thing is going to play all the way out to the end of the season.
Wow. Wouldn't that be a lot of drama? That would be great for the SWAC, great for HBCU football fans as well, man. I can't wait. But you know what concerns me about what's happening with the PV program? They lose the opener to Texas Southern, right? Hadn't done that in 9 straight tries. Then they lose this one in a heartbreaking manner. How will Bubba McDowell get his guys back up and ready to go up to Dallas and play Grambling?
I think it's a consistency thing with Prairie View. Do you know Prairie View's identity? I don't know from week to week whether this is a team they got weapons on the outside, or if this is a team that can run the ball in between the tackles. And somewhere along the line during the course of the game, you know, there are just empty possessions, and they have too many empty possessions. And I just think, you know, in some ways, if they can, you know, foster some sort of identity going forward, get the ball into some playmakers' hands. I mean, I've been watching Prairie View now for, you know, at least the past couple of years. They got a young man, Kobe Cavill. They got to figure out a way to get the ball in his hands. You know, he is.
Yes, he is kin to Dr. Cavill, guys.
He is, yeah, exactly. They got to figure out a way to get the ball into Dr. Cavill's nephew's hands. So, you know, it's going to be very interesting to see, you know, whether they can put a playmaker in space to make some plays with them. But just week to week, I don't know what I'm going to see from an identity standpoint from Prairie View, because, you know, I see the talent there. I see a guy like Connor Wisham in the backfield. I see Shamar Savage on the outside. Right. But just way too many empty possessions on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, they start getting worn down. And you know, it makes for a sort of a bad gumbo, if you will, for an L. So they've got to figure out a way to be consistent on both sides of the ball.
You know, he thought that defensive line, and I'm talking about Coach McDowell, thought the defensive line would be more dominant this season. Presley and those guys, I thought they would be more dominant as well. It's been kind of what's the identity there is what type of football team, what type of grit can you be able to muster after these disappointing losses? If you play a game like you can play the game against Grambling, it should be highly contentious. And if they walk out the State Fair with the win, we may be talking about another new ball game in the wacky SWAC West, man.
The it's
really wacky.
But I mean, make no mistake about it, they're back up against the wall this weekend. Right. And my expectation is that they play with their backs up against the wall, that you get rid of some of this Jekyll and Hyde sort of something that you get from Prairie View. Because like you said, I thought with some of the pieces that they brought back on the defensive side of the ball, that they would be a little bit more dominant. I was blown away, frankly, that Texas Southern was the more physical team when they played in the Labor Day Classic.
Yeah. Being physical makes a difference, and having a quarterback makes a difference too. We will talk about a couple of great quarterback performances, especially one out of a lesser-known conference, but he's doing some great things. We will be back in 2 and 2. Thank you very much.
The walking tree is said to change its entire location in pursuit of sunlight. Where could reinvention take your business? Accenture. Let there be change.
We're close. Let's go.
With Nissan, fun has no limits.
Hey, it's Jared. Let me show you how I created my dorm room vibe for less with Amazon. I have tons of different clothes. I have some pajama pants, more pajama pants. People say I have too much. I don't really listen to people. I love to journal. I got my gratitude journal, I got my mantra journal, and I got my 5-minute journal. And I got a package from Amazon. Let's see what we got for today. This is perfect. This is my journal that I journal about journaling. Dear Diary, I wish I had more PJs.
All right, we're back with the Black Sports Insiders. I'm Kyle T. Mosley. That is the professor, Mr. Charles Bishop. And Charles, man, look, they got some great performances that came out of HBCU football. Let's talk about the performances first before we get into our top 10 and the teams and everything else. The young man out of Clark, Atlanta, he is really making a name for himself at this time. That's David Wright III, and he had a great performance. Let's see. Let me get these stats right. 30 of 49, 4 touchdowns, 374 yards passing in the upset of Bethune-Cookman. What's your thoughts?
Tremendous performance. That was a huge win. And I mean, you take a look at the Clark program where it was in the previous years, and they're undefeated right now. Huge win against Bethune-Cookman, a SWAC foe. And you know, one of the nuggets that I took from Coach Prime during his time in the SWAC is like, it's only so many quarterbacks that can throw you back in the football games. Wow. David Wright is a quarterback that can throw you back into the football game. There's a reason why coaches hold on to their running game like a Linus blanket. Yeah, they don't want to see the ball in the air constantly because bad things happen at that point. But you mentioned it, 30 or 49, 4 touchdowns, only 1 pick. But you just kind of take a look up and down of stats from this past week's passing performances. 38 attempts, 3 interceptions, 36 attempts, 3 interceptions, 31 attempts, 3 interceptions. The fact that David Wright is the sort of quarterback who's accurate and can throw you back into the football games, that's a huge feather in the cap for Teddy Keaton. And Teddy Keaton, I mean, the work that he's done at Allen now brings that, and he and his quarterback over to Clark, huge for the Clark program.
They always say a quarterback can make the difference as well as a coach can make the difference to a program as well. Look, the running back from Grambling, Mr. Hargrove, he had 16 carries, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions for 27 yards. Great performance of that young man. What's your thoughts about him?
Big win for Grambling, especially when you start taking a look at the performance of Contrarian Hargrove. That's a good Jackson State defense, and their physical Jackson State defense. The fact that he was able to go for 81 yards, but I can't speak enough about Grambling's defense. I mean, they are turning teams over at a record rate. I believe 6 turnovers against Texas A&M Commerce. They do another 5 against Jackson State. They were the difference in the game. But you talk about Mr. Hargrove, big in terms of what he was able to do. 2 touchdowns against a stout Jackson State defense.
Yeah, well, talking about the defense of the G-men, Mr. Barley, he had his 3rd interception of the season for those guys, and he also contributed with 7 tackles and 4 stops of his own. Talk about him, and look, the Grambling defense, you see a little bit of the character of Mickey Joseph in those guys as well as in that offense, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I knew Mickey when he was growing up in Louisiana, man. people just used to love Mickey Joseph, how he would bring the team back, and he was a high flying passer and everything else. But he knew how to win, and it seems like Grambling is adopting that philosophy from him.
Bringing the G back, and that's big. I've said for a while, Grambling doesn't stay down for long. When they're down, you better jump on them when they're down. But it looks as though Mickey Joseph is starting to sort of turn things back around into the favor of Grambling. And it's one of those situations when you take a look at Grambling when they start getting back in the mix. It's that defense that starts making plays, getting them back in the game and things of that nature. I mean, and that's historical. Going all the way back to the Trees of Terror. I mean, those Grambling and defense are synonymous. The last iteration, we saw really good defenses, Everett Ties defenses when they were getting to the Celebration Bowl. So it's phenomenal to see them back in the mix. Big game this weekend against Prairie View, and we'll see if it's smoke and mirrors or if it's real. But a win this weekend goes a long way towards a lot of people starting to believe Grambling is all the way back.
Yeah, definitely. In a losing loss, Bethune-Cookman's quarterback Cameron Ransom, he had a pretty great performance, man. He had 12 straight completions in the game. He went 22 of 31, 382 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's also rushed the ball, get this, 11 times for 105 yards and a touchdown himself. Very great performance for that young man, because I think he's just making his third start of the season.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you see about Cameron Ransom, you mentioned it, not only can he throw the football, but the 79 yards on the ground, true dual threat guy. And one of the questions that a lot of people had about Bethune-Cookman is, can they put some points on the board? And we saw against a D2 opponent, against Clark, that they were able to put 30-some-odd points up on the board. It'll be interesting. This is a big game this weekend. I believe Alabama State comes to town if they are able to get that game in, because we're going to see, kind of the trajectory of what the Hurricane is going to do. So we'll find out something a little bit later on in the week. But I'm looking forward to that matchup with Cameron Ransom against this Alabama State defense, because let's be honest, offensively, nothing's going on that side of the ball for Alabama State, but they can play some defense.
Yeah, they can. The Hornets, they like to sting. So the kickers get some love this week. Clark Atlanta's kicker. That was a big time boot. 55 yards, right?
55 yards.
55 yards on a walk-off win against Bethune-Cookman to upset those guys. How huge and how cool you had to be to kick that one.
I mean, let's be honest, Leonard Cabrera, that would have been good from probably 60. I mean, he put total
he put it down.
Yeah, total leather on that one. But that's a huge win for the Clark program. You're talking about a program that was morbid, over the past few seasons. For them to get a big win, SIAC win versus a SWAC team, that's huge. I mean, and the breadcrumbs earlier this season, we saw Jackson State smash a team like Lane. I was sitting there looking like, yeah, I know Clark's good, but they're going up against a Division I opponent, and kudos to them. They fought back. They were down early in this game, and David Wright threw them back into the game. A huge personal foul penalty kind of set things up for Leonard Cabrera. But that was a howitzer that he put over the crossbars. Huge win for the Clark Atlanta program.
Yeah, big boom. Big boom from the league, man. So we had two guys, co-national box to roll quarterbacks and players of the week. That's Jalen Daniels from Norfolk State, as well as Walker Harris from North Carolina Central University. Look, North Carolina Central was up so big, they had to put the freshman in. And the freshman, he went off on them as well and put more points on the board.
That was a huge win for North Carolina Central anytime you take your rival out, but it brings up more questions probably for me about the state of North Carolina A&T football. I mean, from the status where they were when we take a look at them winning Celebration Bowls to the conference change now, and 66, giving up 66 points to your rival, that's tough to kind of handle. So if I'm a A&T booster, I'm kind of scratching my head and like trying to figure this thing out, because the early returns are the the move to the CAA or to the Big South first, and now the CAA, it doesn't look like a great move. But I just don't know where this program is headed. That was a very head scratching loss, and by the grace of, they were able to get past Division II Winston-Salem State. So there are a lot of questions in regards to this North Carolina A&T program right now.
Yeah, great points. Great points. And the young man who's leading those guys at Johnson C. Smith, Mr. Green, any thoughts about him?
Big. I mean, that was a win. I like to take a little bit of credit for it. I said I think Johnson C. Smith can get them at home. But, again, you knocked off a great football team in Virginia Union, and you held one of the top running backs in HBCU football, not just the CIAA, but in HBCU football, Jada Byers, to less than 50 yards. That speaks volumes in terms of what Johnson C. Smith was able to do. We had them number one in our poll, and they're deserving of the ranking. That was a big win this past weekend.
Panthers, are they tailing off, or is it something going on with the defense there? What's happening? Because Doc usually has a very good program.
Which Panthers?
We're talking we're talking about the Virginia Union Panthers.
Oh, Virginia Union Panthers. No, I think it was just I think they'll be right there in the mix of things. It's funny when you say Panthers. I was thinking there are two other Panthers, Prairie View and Clark.
Yeah, we got Prairie, we got Clark, we got Virginia Union.
But Virginia Union, I just think that was a game where Johnson C. Smith, they were ready for the moment. I believe Virginia Union, they'll still be right in the thick of things. I mean, I think they have more balance to their offense. We talk to Jada Byers all the time, but they have a great backup running back who's paces yards behind him. His name escapes me right now, but they've been able to throw the ball a little bit as well. But you're just seeing teams that were in that old CIAA South that are really raising up this season. You're talking about Winston-Salem State. I believe they're 3-1. Johnson C. Smith 4-0 on the season. Of course, Fayetteville State, they're lurking in the wings out there. So they're just playing some great football in the southern part of the conference.
Yeah. And we can't forget about Mr. Bodden. He was maligned earlier part of the season. He helped to bring Southern back for that thrilling win against Prairie View. And Mr. Malachi Jones of Benedict, man, talk about a statement. 3 touchdowns in that game, and Benedict walks that one off as well with the winner. It was past my bedtime. It was late.
They gotta figure something out when they're on ESPN, because I thought I heard a little bit of frustration in the announcers' voices with the number of flags, but tremendous win. If you stayed up to watch it, it was thrilling with regards to Benedict, with a huge bomb to get them in a position for a walk-off touchdown, and for them to walk down a great team at Edward Waters, because Edward Waters, I saw, had some pieces. Speaks a lot about Benedict, so kudos to them for getting the W in that one.
Definitely. Look, guys, we will be back to talk a little bit about more of the top 10 teams, as well as our thoughts on the coaches coming up.
November is American Diabetes Month, but we're not here to celebrate it. Not when diabetes is gripping us and hurting us. At the American Diabetes Association, we're here to make a stand. Join us, add your passion, lift up your loved ones and those in need, and move us closer to a cure. Someday, we can celebrate. Until then, we fight.
Visit your local Acura dealer for attractive offers on a new vehicle.
See those people right there? Mm-hmm. When they get inside and find out this place doesn't serve food, they're gonna wish they had done this.
Facts.
Get one favorite like a Big Mac or Quarter Pounder with cheese and get another for just $1 right now at McDonald's.
This is how it starts with the 2023 McDonald's Change Leaders. 10 young Black visionaries who are starting something and changing everything. Find out what they're up to at mcdchangeleaders.com.
No charger?
It's a Mac. The battery lasts all day. See you next week.
All right, I'm Kyle T. Mosley. I'm back with Charles Bishop. Charles, your students will get on you about this one because you had an incomplete assignment. Charles, we say, give us a top 10. Charles said, I'm going to buck the system. I'm going to do my top 7 instead. That's all right, babe. So let's go over your mid-major or the D2 teams that are in your top 7.
Yeah, when you take a look at the top 7, and I'll go from 7 back up to 1, but at number 7, we have Florida Memorial.
Okay.
Then at number 6, we had West Virginia State. At number 5, we had the Fayetteville State Broncos. We had at 4, the Shaw Bears. Number 3, we had Winston-Salem State. At number 2, we had Clark, and our number 1 team this week was the Johnson C. Smith Bulls. So that was Dr. Ville's top 7 mid-major poll.
All right, top 7. All right. So let's look at the HBCU Legends poll here. We have Johnson C. Smith at the top, then Clark Atlanta. Now, a lot of people are going to say you can go neck and neck with these guys, especially since Clark Atlanta and those guys at Florida Memorial, they had the standoff, right? Got down to the weather played an issue there.
Yeah.
That was a very contentious game. And then you have Winston-Salem that has been opening eyes of a lot of people with big wins. And Shaw, then Virginia Union, Fayetteville State, Fort Valley State, Virginia State, Miles, and West Virginia State. I think West Virginia also was a part of the box to row poll as well. What's your thoughts about this poll?
You take a look at the top 4, and they're all playing tremendous football. I mean, you talk about Johnson C. Smith. We talked about them at 4-0 coming into this week's matchups, but impressive win over Virginia Union. Same thing with Clark. It knocked off Swackfo and Bethune-Cookman. Winston-Salem State, I believe, has been a bit of the surprise for me, but they continue their winning ways. That was a big win to go up to Virginia State and get a last-second field goal. A big win for Winston-Salem State. Then the Shaw Bears. Shaw has been playing some great ball. Big win over Lincoln, 48-14. They're putting some points up. So you take a look at the top 4 in your poll, and they're playing some tremendous football.
Yeah, well, look at Clark Atlanta and Winston-Salem. Those guys had walk-off field goals for the big wins, right? The upsets right there. And you start looking at what's happening with Virginia Union, what's happening with Virginia State. They were thought to be the ones to take over that division and that conference because Benedict they didn't have Chennis Berry in longer, right? Mm-hmm. So, hey, no Chennis Berry. It was going to be easy walking, but Johnson C. Smith and Clark Atlanta have different aspirations at this time. Exactly. And they're doing pretty good. West Virginia State, they're rising up. They're doing a little bit. And Fayetteville State always has a good team. Always. Surprisingly, they beat Elizabeth City pretty soundly, 31-7, man. I was pretty impressed with that. What's happening with Bowie State? Any thoughts about what's happening out there?
Well, it'll be interesting in terms of taking a look at Bowie State. Good win over Livingstone, but where I have them slotted right now is Virginia Union, Virginia State, Bowie. And until, they show me that they are a better ball club than what I thought was a better ball club than Virginia State. I'm still giving the edge to Virginia State, but I think those teams they're going to fight things out, and now we don't have the North-South thing anymore. So in the CIAA, so where I slot them now is like, well, y'all still got Johnson C. Smith to fight through. So it'll be interesting watching Bowie going forward.
Yeah. I thought Coach was going to be able to pick them up this year and kind of get back on the track how Damon Wilson had that team. Sure. Some trials and errors, and they're learning. They're learning at this time. So talk about your majors, your top 7.
My top 7 on the majors. Let's see who we got on there. And again, this is Dr. Bill's poll that comes out every Sunday. Every Sunday morning, we do a review preview every Sunday morning of the games. But top 7, and number 7, we had Howard coming in at 2-2. Jackson State dropped their contest to Grambling, so they come in at 6 this week. They fall down to 6. Morgan State, they check in, big win over Virginia University. Lynchburg, check in at number 5. North Carolina Central, we have them slotted at number 4. Big win over the rival over A&T. FAMU played tough against Troy, but fell in the end. They come in at number 3. Grambling vaults themselves into the top 7 for us. They come in at number 2 at 3-1. Big win over Jackson State. And Hampton, they are the real HU another year. They are the number 1 team in Dr. Bill's poll this week.
Hold on, guys. Y'all heard it. Number 1, Hampton.
Hampton, take a screenshot.
Hampton. He didn't stutter, y'all. Hampton.
Yeah.
And that came from the fans, or that came from y'all?
That came from us. That came Hampton. They 3-1. So
Hampton.
But they haven't started conference play yet. So
let's look at this. We got Hampton number 1.
Now. Yeah.
Then the G-Men.
Yeah.
Then FAMU. I don't know how does FAMU just drop all the way down?
It's a week-to-week poll. So we say it's a week-to-week poll. Whoever.
You sound like Coach Dishman. Week to play. You're a starter this week. You ain't going to be a starter next week because every week got to earn it.
It does sound like Coach Dishman, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, Grambling, they vault themselves above FAMU this week. Grambling checks in at 3-1, FAMU 2-2. So, you take a look at the records and I think everything, figures itself out in the wash at some point in time. But we're going to have some more topsy-turvy weeks. Well, like I said, we're going to have some weeks where you look down at your phone like, I can't believe this happened. I cannot believe such and such be such and such. It makes no sense. It's that much parity in HBCU ball this year.
That's how it was on Saturday night, man. Before I went to my cousin's party in New Orleans, we were about to have a good time, and I'm looking at the phone like, Prairie View lost?
Right. I don't think, I think probably Prairie View fan base was as confident as anybody going into that game, and that's a tough loss. That's a bitter loss. They're 0-2 at home thus far this season. Labor Day Classic and Southern, those were 2 games that you had to take care of at home, and when you're not able to protect home turf, it makes it for a tough season.
Coach, before the season, he felt as though they were being disrespected once again, not having top billing in the West, because I think the preseason prognosticators said it was going to be Alcorn State, which that was not the case. And it's definitely not the case right now, right? So looking at what's happening, they have to be perfect going the rest of the way in almost to be able to get a chance to represent in the West. Don't you think?
Pretty much. I mean, they are at that, proverbial back against the wall, one and done. And that's kind of a wrap, 3 losses in the SWAC West. But this is the position that they've put themselves in. And that's why I think, you're going to see a Prairie View team that's going to play with their hair on fire this weekend up in Dallas. Should be a big crowd as usual, when you're talking about the State Fair Classic. But that's going to be a game I think everybody in the SWAC is going to be paying attention to this week, because that is a huge storyline. I mean, if Grambling knocks Prairie View off, basically you're looking forward to basketball season. So
yeah, definitely. All right, Adam Spencer, all hail to the Hampton Pirates. Got to give the Pirates some credit. A lot of people didn't think what was happening with the transitions of the program, how they released the coach late and were able to pick up the coach, and he's done a tremendous job getting the Pirates ready, rocking and rolling, and putting some people into some fear when now they're thinking about playing the Pirates. Okay, HBCU Legends poll as well as Black Sports Insiders. It's going to be Florida A&M, NCCU, Grambling State. They vote to number 3, as well as Hampton to number 4. And then we have Morgan State, Tennessee State, Howard, Alabama State, Southern, and J-State. All right. What's your thoughts about that?
You have Southern in front of Jackson State, even though Jackson State has a head-to-head.
I got Southern in front of Jackson State.
Interesting. All right. Then we got Alabama State in there, Howard.
This is going to be the tell. If Jackson State gets by Texas Southern, I think Jackson State has a chance to go a little bit higher and higher. You know, I think that was a loss that they needed to learn from against Graham.
Yeah, I mean, and they turned the ball over, 5 times against Grambling. That was the tough thing. And when you take a look at sort of the stats in that game, they outgained Grambling via the air, via the ground, but you can't put the ball on the ground. They had some untimely turnovers in that game. What I think is going to be very interesting when you start taking a look at the teams, what I call the HBCU independent teams that are not, in the SWAC or the MEAC. Tennessee State and OVC and Hampton
CAA.
In the CAA, they're going to start getting into conference play. So, everything's hunky-dory in September. And then let's see what happens once we get to October. We get to see if Hampton is for real. I mean, you're fighting it out in one of the tougher conferences in FCS. Same thing happens with Tennessee State. They kind of have a great momentum, great inertia there in the beginning part of the season. And as we start getting into October, November, they fall out of the stream of consciousness, if you will.
Fall out the string of consciousness. Sound like a couple of my old girlfriends. Fell out the string of consciousness. All right, man.
Yeah, well, you kind of forget the phone number. You
better forget that number. Yeah. All right, let's look at what Mr. David Wright was able to do this weekend.
The walking tree is said to change its entire location in pursuit of sunlight. Where could reinvention take your business? Accenture. Let there be change.
That way.
We're close. Let's go.
With Nissan, fun has no limits.
Hey, it's Jared. Let me show you how I created my dorm room vibe for less with Amazon. I have tons of different clothes. I have some pajama pants, more pajama pants. People say I have too much. I don't really listen to people. I love to journal. I got my gratitude journal, I got my mantra journal, and I got my 5-minute journal. And I got a package from Amazon. Let's see what we got for today. This is perfect. This is my journal that I journal about journaling. Dear Diary, I wish I had more PJs.
All right, we are back. About to close it out here, Chuck. Man, got some good football ahead. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But let's also talk about something that happened that was pretty special last night in the Cincinnati and Washington Commanders game. You like to see this happening, man. Let's see if we can pull up this clip. Because these guys, these big guys, don't get much love.
Reset play clock, they don't. With 3 seconds left, Daniels flips. He's got another, and this time it's Trent Scott. The big tackler was the extra offensive lineman. And what a night for the Commanders.
I wonder what frat he pledged.
Hey, it's like, I don't know. Friendship is essential to the soul, I tell you. Man, how you wonder, man. Trent Scott, he's been dreaming about his touchdown celebration for a while. So when he got that play call, he wasn't going to miss that one whatsoever. So shout out to the Grambling guy, Trent Scott, man.
Trent Scott, he did it, man. After 7 seasons, he got his first touchdown. Looks like also he's probably going to be a major part of that offensive line, protecting Mr. Daniels, who had an outstanding game, guys. I mean, think about what he has done. I want to see if I didn't pull it up, but Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and Jaden Daniels now have the top 3 NFL performances, top completion percentages in the first 3 games of an NFL season in history. And he sits number 2 right behind Drew Brees.
And it looks as though he's playing with sort of an air, sort of a confidence that you don't see out of rookies. I mean, there's a difference between sort of Caleb Williams and Jalen Daniels. Caleb looks as though the game is just fast to him right now. But there's a throw last night that Jalen Daniels makes. I mean, guys bearing down on him, and he puts it right on the money, stayed in there, took the hit, and completed the pass. And he dropped it in the bucket. It was a pretty pro. But I mean, that has to, if you're a Cowboy fan in the NFC East right now, it has to just like really hurt your heart.
Yeah, it does. I know. Let the violins play. That's what I say, man. Those Cowboy fans, they've been having enough of it. But look, you have to like what you saw with Daniels and how he's progressed. But also, let's talk about the black quarterbacks. And I know we've been focusing on that since last week. We had Lewis Moore, who is the author of the Great Black Hope. We'll have the book around. Well, it's around here somewhere. And guys, go get that book. But what came out today on Amazon Prime, here it is, right here. The Great Black Hope. Get the book. But what came out today also was Michael Vick's documentary on the evolution of the black quarterback. That is a must-see. Steve Weich, who is also an HBCU grad from Howard and NFL Network guy, said it's a great documentary. You have to take your time to go and see it. If you need to get somebody's Amazon account, try to get it, because you need to see how he had some great one-on-one talks, like with Doug Williams, James Shaq Harris, and those guys. It's a beautiful thing. So go see that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I mean, you're talking about the Shaq Harrises of the world, Doug Williams. They had to go through so many stereotypes to play that position. And even shout out to the sort of the generation pre-Shaq Harris, because I always tell people, you know, there was quarterback play, black quarterback play at HBCUs in the 50s, in the early 60s. I always point to a man who's still living, Roy Curry, who was the MVP of the 1961 Orange Blossom Classic. You talk to a lot of people around that time. He was the precursor to Michael Vick, a gentleman who could throw the ball downfield, who would use his legs. And you're talking about Big John Merritt in the late 50s, early 60s, throwing the football. That's just not something, you know, that was prevalent. But Roy Curry is sort of a lost generation that is forgotten, because there's a quarterback that actually comes before the Shaq Harrises of the world.
And Eldridge Dickey as well. You know, James Shaq Harris,
exactly.
He gives a lot of credit to him. We're talking Houstonian, right? This guy was just one of the most magnificent players ever to be able to play football from this area. And I know he went to be drafted number 1 in the AFL at that time with the Raiders organization, but he never really got a fair chance, because they also drafted a guy named Ken Stabler. So, but Stabler he went on record once to say Dickey was a better quarterback than he was.
Yeah.
And John McMahon, you know, he had to make a political decision when it came to Dickey at that time. So here's a little bit of the trailer.
To really understand the evolution of the black quarterback, I needed to take a journey.
Well, let's get to it. They say we weren't smart enough. We couldn't lead.
Guys like you showed that whatever your dream is, you can go and achieve it.
The black quarterback is a symbol of what's possible.
That's the impact.
Wow. That's chilling, man, just to see those faces, right?
Exactly. And you're talking about some of the most tremendous quarterbacks that the NFL has seen. I mean, I still get chills looking at Randall Cunningham and him giggling at the line, you know, playing Dallas, you know, like, oh, God. Yeah, I see Randy Moss out there. I know what's about to happen. So,
but also, man, think about Warren Moon.
The
only black quarterback in the Professional Football Hall of Fame right now, right? And hopefully we'll have more. You look at the talent we have on with Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, and on and on and on. We had 15 started at the beginning of the season, down to 13, but we still have a good number of young men that are doing some great jobs at this time.
Very interesting. I was talking to a defensive coordinator, and he was like, you know, it's a different dynamic when you're playing 11 on 11 versus 11 on 10, because most times you don't account for, you know, the quarterback leaving the pocket. And that's just something that black quarterbacks have an innate ability to use all their gifts to make them tremendously effective. And it just sort of gives you a different perspective. Like, you really got to play some top-notch defense and play the entire field.
Yeah, definitely. So this young man, Mr. Kenny Gallup Jr., the Aeneas Williams Award winner from last season, and he's on the Black College Football Player of the Year watch list this season. And he just committed to the HBCU Legacy Bowl, as well as last week, Miles Crawley did, as well as Jada Byers out of Virginia Union. So kudos to him and what he's done. This young man for Clark Atlanta has 9 touchdowns already. Mr. Harris called, he said, put some spec on my name. He's doing the do right now, man.
Oh man, they're playing tremendous ball, and I tell you, the thing that's fun in terms of looking at Clark is the fact of the matter. David Wright is going to find different receivers. You have Armon Harris up there, first in Division II in receiving touchdowns, but again, talking to another defensive coordinator, he was like, the crazy thing is, you think that's the alpha receiver, but the alpha receiver is another individual, Jamal Jones. He's always looking for Jamal Jones. Jamal Jones had 10 catches for 127 yards. Armon Harris, he had a huge game, 6 catches, 94 yards. Then they had another individual, David Martin. He had 8 catches for 85 yards in that game. So the way that Teddy Keaton Ball is spreading the ball around to these receivers, they are a dangerous, dangerous team, Kyle.
Keaton Ball and those guys called the Cole brothers, right? Those guys can bring it.
Yes, indeed.
And here are some of the homecoming dates, guys, in HBCU, Clark, Atlanta. Well, we talk about Tuskegee Morehouse. That classic is coming up. Then you have Tennessee State. Then the Howard homecoming, and got the Spellhouse homecoming. I wish I could be there, man. I can't be there. I'm maybe out of town. Yeah, I won't be able to go to my homecoming, guys. So that's going to be hurting for me, but it's going to be a good one in all. All right. We also got First Take is going to be at the final game for Morehouse against Clark Atlanta. That should be a good one for everybody. Who are the top coaches right now, in your opinion, and doing a great job, in your opinion, in HBCU football, Chuck?
Definitely on the mid-major level, I'm going to go Teddy Keaton. I mean, like I said, Clark football was not in the stream of consciousness, if you will. But Teddy Keaton has brought a sense of relevancy to the Atlanta area with regards to Clark. And Mickey Joseph. I mean, that was a big one back to state. So Mickey Joseph is starting to get that Grambling name back into the mouths of the prognosticators and announcers and things of that nature. So Mickey Joseph is doing a great job turning that Grambling program back around.
And we can't forget about the head coach over at Johnson C. Smith.
Exactly. That was another one. Exactly. That was another one. So I think all three of those guys are doing tremendous. Like I said, we had Johnson C. Smith number 1 in our poll. Golden Bulls 4-0 on the season. Big win this past week over Virginia Union. Can they keep the momentum going?
We shall see. Any top games that the people need to be aware of other than the PV Grambling game?
Let's see. I think a good one is going to be Fayetteville State at Virginia State. That's going to be, Virginia State at Fayetteville State. The game is at Fayetteville State. That'll be a great one. I think another one to kind of keep your eyes on, we've got them both. Virginia Union just fell out of our poll, but the Shaw Bears, they go to Richmond to take on Virginia Union. I think that'll be a great game. When you start taking a look around, Circle City Classic, North Carolina Central and Norfolk State. I think that'll be a great game. And of course, let's see if Texas Southern, if they've turned the corner, are they for real? They got Big Bad Jackson State coming into Houston this weekend. Should be a great turnout. I think the Texas Southern fan base is a little excited about this Texas Southern football team. And Jackson State fan base, we know they travel well. So that'll be a great game to keep an eye on.
All right. That's Mr. Charles Bishop. Chuck, tell everybody how they can find you on the World Wide Web.
Oh, no doubt. Obviously, I'm on Instagram. You can find me, cbishop1906. You can find me on Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab every Tuesday and Thursday. We also do a Sunday preview review show where we take a look at all the action from Saturday. So 3 times a week, you can catch me on these interwebs, if you will, on YouTube on Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab.
Well, look, thank you for joining me, man. And we got to keep on getting this rolling between the two of us. We've been talking about it for a long, long time. And I appreciate you taking time and lending your professional advice to the people. And the professor has spoken. See, Dr. Cavill is not the only professor over there inside the HBCU lab, guys. I just want to let y'all know Chuck is the one as well. He teaches as well.
I'm working under the dean. You know, the dean is the boss. I'm just a professor over there under the D. So, but yeah, we enjoy what we do over there at Texas Southern, and looking forward to some more exciting HBCU football action. Like I said, it's going to be a head turner every week.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, don't forget, we need your support. Don't forget to support Black Sports Insiders. We're growing. We're doing some great things. We're trying to give you guys some new content, original interviews from coaches and sports figures that are out there in this world. So just kind of support us in what we're doing, as well as go to hbculegends.net. You can read up on all of the HBCU football content that we have from Sports Illustrated. And also, it's still September. It's still Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. I'm a prostate cancer survivor. Guys, go get checked. Go get checked. Go get checked, please. And we're praying for everybody in Florida that has this hurricane barreling down in their direction. I'm Kyle T. Mosley. That's Chuck. No, we ain't gonna call him Chuck. We're gonna call him the Professor Bishop. All right, Charles, have a good one, Doc. We'll talk to you.
I enjoyed it, Cal. Thank you for bringing me on.
All right, thank you. Take care.